So in 2011, I spoke at a conference in San Antonio about leadership and about culture and about growth. And I gave an offer that I'd be willing to sit down with anyone to talk through their plan for growth. And one of the gentlemen who was at the conference had given me a testimonial of how I had helped his business. And so after one of the sessions, this gentleman from New Jersey, and he was total Jersey. Any Jersey guys in here?
Forget about it.
Forget about it. He's total Jersey. He says, Michael, could I have some time with you? I want to sit down and talk about this. So we sit down at this little cafe, and he says, so, this other gentleman tells me you're the guy that can help me grow my business. And I said, okay, well, his name was Bob. I said, Bob, what is it that you want? And he said, well, in that session, you had us write down, where we wanted to go. What was our 5-year goal or 3? He says, so I wrote down a couple things. He said, I want to grow my business by 25%. And I said, okay, well, how have you been the last few years? He goes, we've just been basically the same, stagnant, year in and year out. And I said, okay, so 25% growth. I said, well, why'd you come up with that number? He says to me, well, he bought a boat and he bought a house on Jersey Shore. Can't make this stuff up. Straight Jersey Shore, down in Cape May. And he says, yeah, I just bought that, so, I need to grow because I need to make more money to pay those things off, pay those things down. I said, okay, that's a good goal. I said, any other reason you want to make that money? And he goes, well, I want to be a little more stable. He goes, sometimes, when things are rough, I don't take a paycheck. And so I want to make sure that things are really stable. I said, okay, stability is really good. I said, any other reasons? He says, well, no, I can't really think about that right now. I said, well, okay, now tell me what has been keeping you from growth. And he says, well, here's the deal. There's no good people out there. Nobody wants to work. People just want to get away with doing the least amount possible, so forth and so on. He's going into the details of that. And he tells me that he has a really hard time finding good subcontractors, and his problem was people. And so I stopped. Because I was taught by a mentor very early on that gave me this great line. It's one of those lines you wish you could tattoo and make sure you remind yourself of it every day. He said, when things go wrong, look in the mirror, but when things go right, look out the window. So what I chose to do in that moment with Bob was put a mirror in front of him. So I asked him a weird set of questions. I said, okay, Bob, let's say you grew by 25%. I said, let's just put that out there. You did it. Is that success? He stops, he looks down, he knows I'm getting him somewhere, so he kind of looks at me reluctantly, says, well, yeah. I said, okay, well, that's a successful year. You would say, yeah, it's success. I said, okay, let's say you grew by 50%. I said, would you be successful then? He says, yeah, what are you getting at, man? I said, okay. I said, let's say you grow by 50%, you are now beyond what you'd imagine successful, and a communist regime comes and takes over our country and throws you in a concentration camp for being a capitalist. I said, would you have had a successful year? And he looks at me, I think he's looking for the exit, what is wrong with this dude? He needs to be in a padded room with one of those little white jackets. And he looks at me and he goes, well, no. And I said, wait a minute. If you grow by 50%, you wouldn't have gained anything? And he stops and he takes a seat, looks down at the table, and there was a glass top on the table, and I could see, I was watching him through this glass top table, the reflection, and I see he's really in his subconscious now, trying to draw out information. He goes, well, I guess I would have, had to work hard. Okay? I said, so I write that. I said, hard work, good. I said, what else? He goes, well, I guess I would have had to come up with some new strategies. I said, oh, good, new strategies. What else? He goes, I guess I would have gained some communication skills. I said, great, communication skills. And then, a light bulb moment, the reason I share this story is because the visceral reaction from Bob in that moment shook me to my core. He stopped and he looked down And he said, I would have had to grow in patience. I said, okay, stop. I said, what do you mean by that? And he goes, well, I've been known to lose my temper. And he said, I have lost tons of employees because when things get out of hand, I start screaming, I yell, because I've thrown stuff. I've had people walk off the jobs that I'm leading because they're scared or they just get pissed at me. And he says, I've lost good vendors. He says, and it, honestly, it causes issues at home too. And I said, okay, so let's take a step back. I said, do you want to grow by 25%? I said, we could come up with all the strategies and the systems in the world. Proactive strategies, new activity, absolutely, that's going to grow. But if you grow and you lose employees because of this, all you're going to have is a bigger headache. He said, yeah. I said, so I need you to answer this for me. I said, if you grow impatient, do you believe, all in, you believe that your organization is going to grow? And he stopped. He, again, gave him a minute to think, and he says, yes. I said, so I want to engage you. We'll engage our time together. But we're not going to talk about anything except patience. He said, okay, you're going to pay me a lot of money to sit with you and talk through your issues with patience. And he said, okay. So the story went like this. I start working with Bob on his internal process when it comes to patience. And I'm gonna make the story very short. Over the next year, Bob did not grow by 25% in the first year, okay? We dove down. Every time he would run into an issue where he was gonna lose patience, I told him to text me. I said, you just gotta get in the process of changing your thought processes. Because the fact is, in life, if you want to change anything, you've got to change the internal systems. And the systems start with our thoughts. And so I made him disrupt the pattern that he used to be on, which was to get emotional and get reaction. And we start, when he would text me, I go, okay, what's going on? What's actually going on? Well, this guy doing this, I think he's trying to rip me off. And we'd have a conversation. I said, is he really trying to rip you off? Or are you projecting that on him based upon something that happened in your past? Long story short, Bob, to this day, has become a tremendous man of patience, which helped him make better decisions in his business. So I'm very honored to tell you that Bob quadrupled his growth over the past 10 years. He has now 3 locations. He has triple the employees he used to have. He is better with his systems, his processes, and 2 years after that, I was invited to go back to the conference and speak again. And Bob stands up and gives me a testimonial that, quite frankly, blew my business up. As Bob stood up, and people were asking, how are you growing this much? And he kept, Michael Ross, Michael Ross, Michael Ross. And he stands up and gives me a testimony. And he says, you all are asking about my growth. And he says, we have grown and we have come up with new strategies and new systems. And he goes, but I don't even care about that anymore. He says, we've gotten the growth that we want, but I don't even care about that anymore. He goes, because I became, through this process, became a better husband and a better father. And he said, the business growth is now taking care of itself. I want to share that with you because in leadership and in the corporate world, which we're all a part of, it is such an internal process and a system to lead with control, with fear, with an iron fist, when the real path to unleashing human potential is to get down into the heart. And I want to discuss that with you today, of how to lead like a coach. And this isn't fluff. This isn't rainbows, unicorns, and sunshine. There is true strategy and there's true system. And if you decide you want to take this process and lead like a coach, I promise you this, nothing will challenge and stretch you more than leading like a coach. I always think it's interesting when people call the people side the soft skills. I understand why they say it, but I don't know about y'all. The people side is the hardest skill of all, because we as human beings, we are complicated. We are complicated. I'm one of those dudes, like, I'm a Generation Xer, and I was in the military for 4 years. I was overseas. I lived in Japan. So when I got back from all of that, technology had blown up. So I'm one of the dudes that's like behind the times. And I look at technology, I'm like, it's complicated. But you look at the internal processing system of a human being, and it's 1,000,000 times more complicated than the greatest technology in the world today. So when I say it will stretch you to lead like a coach, it will. However, nothing in the world is more rewarding, and nothing grows your businesses faster than when you focus on people. My dad told me this when I started my first day in corporate America. I was all excited, I got an opportunity to work in sales and marketing for this IT firm, and I had my suit on, I'm ready to go. My dad told me the greatest line to this day that I can remember about being in business. And he looked at me before I walked out, and he goes, Michael, just remember this. If you take care of people, money will take care of itself. And that was one of the greatest pieces of advice that I've ever gotten, and I like passing that on to whomever I can. So real quick, I like to follow a process. So here's what we're covering today in our short time together. I want to talk to you about the philosophy of leading like a coach. You got a little bit there in my introductory story, but I want to share a little bit more with you about that. The second is I want to talk about the balance of emotion and rationale. And I know sitting with a bunch of financial services people, you're going, God, we're going to talk about emotion. Yes, because there has to be a balance between the two. And I want to talk to you about the importance of that balance today. And then I want to do a little practice, okay? Very short, but I want you to practice the coaching process today. So a little bit of out of our comfort zone, absolutely, but you'll see how practical it is at the end of the day. First thing is this. I love having discussion because here's why. Education comes from the Latin word educo, which means to draw out. Instruction is dumping in. True education doesn't actually happen until you put your thoughts and your personal relevance and systems to the ideas themselves. That's why you get out of college, you think you're real smart now, ready to take on the world. You're asking for some ridiculous salary because you're educated. The true education doesn't start till you get out and you start working. And then you got to learn how to forget a lot of the stuff that you learned in college, right? So I love to have discussions. So if you will, just at your tables, everybody go around. We don't have to do this very long, but I'd love for you to just tell a story about a time where a leader made you feel empowered, where you truly felt empowered. Second is, tell a story about a time a leader disempowered you. And then finally, what were some of the differences in results, emotions, and trust? Okay? So if you would, just go around your table, tell those stories real quick. I know I start you off at the first thing in the morning with these big existential questions. But just go ahead and do that real quick, and we'll come back together in a few minutes.